Hello, I'm Michael. Before I continue, please like and subscribe. I'm a 16-year-old high school student from a small town in Ohio. My life took an unexpected turn last year when my mom remarried. At first, I was cautiously optimistic about having a stepfather. Maybe it would be nice to have a male role model around. But I was wrong. My new stepfather, Richard, seemed okay initially. He'd take us out for ice cream and ask about my day at school. But it didn't take long for things to change. I started noticing how he'd subtly criticize me to my mom when he thought I couldn't hear. He'd say things like, "Don't you think Michael's been spending too much time with his friends? Maybe we should limit his social activities." One day, I overheard him talking to my mom in the kitchen. "I'm just worried about Michael's grades. Maybe we should consider some stricter rules about his study habits." The thing is, my grades were fine. I was a solid B student, but Richard made it sound like I was failing everything. I tried to talk to my mom about it, but she just brushed it off. "Richard's just trying to help, sweetie. He cares about your future." Things got worse when Richard offered me a part-time job at his company. I was excited at first. It seemed like a great opportunity to earn some money and gain work experience. Plus, I thought it might help us bond. For the first few weeks, everything seemed fine. I was filing paperwork and answering phones, nothing too exciting. But it was a job. Then one day, Richard called me into his office. "Michael, we need to talk about your performance," he said, his face serious. I was confused. "Is something wrong?" I thought I was doing okay. Richard shook his head. "I'm afraid not. There have been some serious issues with your work. I'm going to have to let you go." I was stunned. "What issues?" No one said anything to me about problems with my work. "Well, that's part of the problem, isn't it?" Richard said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You haven't been paying attention. I'm sorry, but I can't keep you on if you're not going to take this seriously." I left his office in a daze. I knew he was lying. I had been doing my job just fine. But now I had no way to prove it, and no job. When I got home, I found my mom in the kitchen. "Mom, Richard fired me today," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked surprised. "What? Why?" Before I could answer, Richard walked in. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry you had to hear about it like this," he said, putting his arm around my mom. "I was hoping to talk to you first. Michael's just not cut out for office work. I think it's better if he focuses on his studies for now." I couldn't believe it. He was spinning the story, making it sound like he was doing me a favor. And the worst part? My mom was nodding along, buying every word. As I watched them standing there, I realized something had changed. It wasn't just about losing a job. Richard had found a way to drive a wedge between me and my mom, and I had no idea how to fix it. After getting fired from Richard's company, I knew I had to take control of my own future. I couldn't rely on my mom or Richard for support anymore. So I threw myself into my studies and started looking for any job I could find. I picked up shifts at the local diner, mowed lawns, and even started tutoring younger kids in math. It wasn't glamorous, but every dollar I earned felt like a small victory against Richard's attempts to keep me down. When it came time to apply for colleges, I didn't even bother asking my mom or Richard for help. I spent hours in the school library researching scholarships and filling out applications. It paid off when I got accepted to State University with a partial scholarship. The day I told my mom about my acceptance, I hoped she'd be proud. Instead, she just looked worried. "Oh, honey, that's so far away. Are you sure you want to go there?" I could hear Richard's influence in her words. "Mom, it's a great opportunity. I've already figured out how to pay for it." She frowned. "But Richard said he'd help you get into the community college here. Wouldn't that be easier?" I bit back my frustration. "I appreciate that, but I want to do this on my own." As I packed up to leave for college, my relationship with my mom grew more strained. Every conversation seemed to circle back to Richard's opinions or concerns. It hurt, but I knew I had to focus on my future. College was tough. I was working 2 part-time jobs while carrying a full course load. There were nights I'd collapse into bed exhausted, wondering if it was all worth it. But then I'd remember Richard's smug face. When Richard fired me, I found the energy to keep going. I didn't go home much during those 4 years. Each visit felt more awkward than the last. My mom would try to bridge the gap, but Richard was always there, a constant reminder of why I'd left. Finally, graduation day arrived. As I put on my cap and gown, I felt a surge of pride. I had done this on my own, despite everything. I scanned the crowd, hoping to see my mom's face. That's when I spotted them, my mom looking uncomfortable and Richard wearing a self-satisfied smirk. After the ceremony, they approached me. "Congratulations, son," Richard said loudly, clapping me on the back. "I always knew you had it in you." I tensed at his touch. "Thanks," I said stiffly. "You know," Richard continued, his voice carrying to those around us, "I think it's time we discuss reimbursement for your tuition. After all, your mother and I have made quite the investment in your future." I stared at him stunned. "What are you talking about? I paid for this myself." Richard laughed as if I had told a joke. Now, let's not be ungrateful. We all know how expensive college is these days." I could see my classmates and their families watching us, confusion and sympathy on their faces. My mom looked mortified. In that moment, I wanted nothing more than to expose Richard for the fraud he was. But I held my tongue. This wasn't the time or place. Instead, I turned to my mom. "Thanks for coming," I said, giving her a quick hug before walking away. As I joined my friends for photos, my mind was already racing. Richard had shown his true colors in front of everyone. Now it was time to plan my next move. I wasn't going to let him get away with this. The day after graduation, I started my investigation. I reached out to former coworkers from Richard's company, people I'd barely known during my brief time there. To my surprise, many were eager to talk. "I couldn't believe it when I heard how he treated you," said Sarah, who'd been the receptionist. "But then again, after what happened to me, maybe I shouldn't be surprised." I leaned forward. "What do you mean? What happened?" Sarah's story was eerily similar to mine. Richard had fired her after she questioned some strange entries in the company's financial records. "He said I was being nosy, that it wasn't my place to ask questions," she explained. As I talked to more ex-employees, a pattern emerged. Richard had a habit of getting rid of anyone who showed too much interest in the company's finances. It was time to dig deeper. I set up a meeting with a lawyer, explaining everything I knew so far. "Look," I said, "I know it's not much to go on, but there's got to be something we can do, right?" The lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Ms. Chen, listened carefully. "Actually," she said when I finished, "there might be. If we can get access to the company's financial records, we might be able to prove fraudulent activity." "But how?" I asked. "Richard's not just going to hand them over." Ms. Chen smiled. "No, but remember, your mother is his wife. Depending on how he structured the business, she might have legal rights to that information." It was a long shot, but it was something. Over the next few months, I worked tirelessly, gathering statements from former employees and piecing together a timeline of Richard's suspicious activities. One breakthrough came when I reconnected with Tom, the company's former accountant. "I always knew something was off," he confided. "But Richard had a way of making you doubt yourself. When I raised concerns, he'd laugh it off, tell me I was overthinking things." Tom had kept copies of some financial documents just in case. As we pored over them together, the extent of Richard's embezzlement became clear. He'd been siphonning off company funds for years, disguising it as business expenses. Armed with this evidence, I met with Ms. Chen again. "This is good," she said, reviewing the documents. "Really good. I think we have enough to file a lawsuit." I hesitated. "A lawsuit? Is that really necessary?" Ms. Chen looked at me seriously. "Michael, what Richard's done isn't just unethical. It's illegal. He's stolen money, manipulated people, and created a hostile work environment. He needs to be held accountable." I thought about all the people Richard had hurt, about how he'd driven a wedge between me and my mom. I nodded. "Okay, let's do it." As we prepared the lawsuit, I braced myself for the storm that was coming. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about justice for everyone Richard had wronged. The day we filed the lawsuit, everything changed. Suddenly, Richard's carefully constructed world began to crumble. At first, he tried to brush it off. "It's just a disgruntled ex-employee trying to cause trouble," he told the local paper. As more details emerged, Richard's bravado faded. Former employees stepped forward, sharing their stories, and the media latched onto the case, painting Richard as a small-town tyrant who had abused his power. Each new revelation seemed to dig him deeper into a hole. I watched it all unfold from a distance, feeling a mix of satisfaction and sadness. I hadn't wanted it to come to this, but Richard had left me no choice. The courtroom became my second home as the case dragged on. Richard's lawyers tried every trick in the book to discredit me and the other witnesses, but the evidence was too strong. Finally, after months of legal battles, the judge made her ruling. "The court finds in favor of the plaintiff," she announced. "Mr. Richard Thompson is hereby ordered to pay restitution to all affected parties and face criminal charges for embezzlement and fraud." As the courtroom erupted in cheers, I sat there stunned. We'd won. Richard was going to face consequences for his actions. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed around me. "How does it feel to have exposed your stepfather's crimes?" one asked. I took a deep breath. "This was never about revenge," I said. "It was about doing what's right. I hope this case sends a message that no one is above the law, no matter who they are or what position they hold." As the crowd dispersed, I saw my mom standing off to the side. She looked older, tired. I walked over to her. "I'm so sorry, Michael," she said, her voice breaking. "I should have believed you. I should have seen what was happening." I hugged her tightly. "It's okay, Mom. It's over now." In the weeks that followed, I found myself thinking about all the other kids out there who might be in similar situations. That's when the idea hit me. I used some of the settlement money to start a nonprofit organization. We provide legal aid and support to teenagers dealing with difficult family situations. It's not always easy work, but every time we help someone, I feel like we're turning my past struggles into something positive. As for Richard, last I heard, he was serving time in a minimum security prison. Sometimes I think about visiting him, but I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet. What I am ready for is the future. For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe easy. I've learned that sometimes standing up for what's right isn't easy, but it's always worth it in the end. As I wrapped up another successful case at the nonprofit, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I'd come. The organization had grown beyond my wildest dreams, helping hundreds of teenagers navigate complex family situations. One afternoon, I received an unexpected call. It was my mom. "Michael," she said, her voice shaky, "Richard's being released next week." My heart raced. I hadn't thought about him in years. "How are you feeling about that?" I asked cautiously. "Honestly, I'm scared," she admitted. "But I wanted you to know first. I'm filing for divorce." I felt a mix of relief and concern. "Do you need any help?" "No, sweetie, I've got this. I wanted to thank you for being brave enough to stand up to him when I couldn't." After we hung up, I sat in my office, processing. It felt like the final chapter of a long, difficult book was closing. A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. It was Sarah, my first ally in the case against Richard and now my deputy director. "Everything okay, boss?" she asked, noticing my expression. "Yeah," I said, smiling. "Just thinking." And that's the end of our story. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a situation where standing up against something wrong not only changed your life, but also led you to your purpose? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story moving and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to light. This approach connects the story's theme to the viewer's personal experiences, encouraging deep, meaningful interactions while smoothly integrating a call to action.